people that are lonely and isolated and don't have a community and see their friends, they are hundreds of times more likely to get arthritis and heart disease and diabetes and Alzheimer's, and not to mention, depression and suicide. So we can see again, be a part of a community, live longer, live healthier. Do not belong to a community. One study, they said they estimated that, if you smoke, you're 20 times more likely to die. If you eat a lot of fat foods, you're 15 times more likely to die early. But if you are alone, you're 30% more chance of dying young. So it shows that being alone is worse than smoking. It's worse than being eating badly, and it's worse than being an alcoholic. You're more likely to die young if you live alone and a lonely and ostracized kind of life. So we got it from both ends. Community, live long and prosper. No community, die young and miserable. So that's part of why I've been writing this book.
I'm moving house today. It's been 2 years, 8 months and 28 days, and I've got to say that as I step off the bus for what could be the last time spent as sitting in your bus, supermarket queues, etc. And I have to say though, it's only today that I'm glad to be leaving. I really will miss the when Santa.
Listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan.
Hey everybody, Chris McMillan here. This is episode 44 of truthconduit.com. It's been a while since I've come out with an interview, so I'm excited today. I've got Stefan Verstappen here. Now, Stefan, I've made a list out, and I've kind of copied this from what you've written, and I've kind of tweaked it to my own. But you are a master of survival, an author, an adventurer. That's a broad term. A researcher, a community organizer, martial arts instructor with, now on your website it says over 35 years, but I'm wondering when that was written. We might be going on 40 years now.
We're going on 40 years.
Yeah, of experience teaching in martial arts. Former Canadian expat, having lived in various countries in Asia, studying martial arts, and I will argue human behavior. And most recently, this new book that you've written called The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. And now you've just completed an online course that's going to be available very soon that incorporates the teachings and the lessons all about this book. So I'm going to start with an unusual question. Of course, I want to ask you about the course and the book. I'll let you go with that. But there was something you said that really struck me, and I couldn't find it in my notes, but I thought, well, I'll just ask him here today. The longest living people historically, they're called, what was it, in these blue zones?
Yes, blue zones. Yes.
So what was their secret? Was it food? Was it water? You want to talk about that for a second?
Sure, I'll be happy to talk about that. I was working with, I have a very good friend that lives in Santa Barbara. He's an emergency room doctor. And his name is Dr. Ronald Kapp, and he wrote a book called, I keep forgetting the name of his book, Passion to Live. And it's been his study on how, why people get old and why people get sick. And, we're plagued as a society, especially as you get older, with diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, then dementia, Alzheimer's. And Dr. Kapp says that all those diseases are symptoms of aging, and that aging is the absolute, that is the disease. And so he traveled around the world to what are known as blue zones. Blue zones are geographical areas throughout the world where people that live within that geographical area tend to live to be 100 or older. So these areas include, there's a place in Costa Rica, there's a place in Sardinia, there's a place in Okinawa, and there's even a place in California, but the people that live there are all, I forget now, it's Amish or something like that. I mean,
maybe the Mennonites, Amish.
Maybe the Mennonites or the Amish. I live in the Mennonite community here. But anyway, so this has been a curiosity for a lot of researchers. There's been several books written about it, in addition to Dr. Ron's book about blue zones. And so they went there and they wanted to find out how come these people are so happy and they live to be 100. And the key is that they live to be 100, 105, 110, and yet they don't have diabetes. They don't have arthritis. They don't have Alzheimer's. They live to be 110, and then they die peacefully in their sleep, and they've never suffered from disease. So what is the key secret to that? Well, they went and they looked, and was it the food they ate? Was it the maybe it's something in the soil where they grew their vegetables? Maybe there was some nutrients that we don't have. Maybe it was the wine. They even checked the wine, because everybody thought, oh, well, wine is good for you. Yeah, sure. Booze is good for you as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I won't argue with that.
There's nothing wrong with having a couple of beers at the end of the day. It relaxes people, but I know there's a lot of, anyways. They could not find a common denominator between all these communities. There was nothing special about the food. There was nothing special about the wine. There was nothing special about the water they drank. But the only commonality, and this has been brought up in several TED Talks, and I've got that on my favorites playlist. If you go to my YouTube channel and check on my favorites, then you can see all the videos that I like. And I've saved all those TED Talks where they talk about the commonality between all these communities is they were communities. These people were born and grew up and had families and lived their entire lives in the village. They knew everybody. They got together almost every day for coffee at the cafe, at the outdoor cafe, or at the restaurant. They ate together. They knew each other. They had strong family ties, and they had community. And it seems to appear that community is what makes you live a long time and prevents disease. You see, we are essentially herd animals. We need to belong to something. We need to belong to something, hopefully, that's greater than ourselves. Like this is what gives us immortality. If I can be part of a movement that will survive long after I'm dead, and that I can contribute to this culture and this society, and my contributions will reverberate through history, I am essentially immortal. And so, if we can be part of a community where our efforts are rewarded and people appreciate us for who we are, and we can be friends for, these people were friends for like 80 years, then, that seems to indicate that will allow you to live a longer time. Now, the contra indication to this is studies done on people that live alone, that are lonely. And again, this is, in a couple of the TED Talks by these doctors, you can look it up yourself, but it's absolutely true. The reverse is true. People that are lonely and isolated and don't have a community and don't see their friends, they are hundreds of times more likely to get arthritis and heart disease and diabetes and Alzheimer's, and not to mention, depression and suicide. So we can see, again, be a part of a community, live longer, live healthier. Do not belong to a community. One study, they said, they estimated that, if you smoke, you're 20 times more likely to die. If you eat a lot of fat foods, you're 15 times more likely to die early. But if you are alone, you're 30% more chance of dying young. So it shows that being alone is worse than smoking. It's worse than being eating badly, and it's worse than being an alcoholic. You're more likely to die young if you live alone and a lonely and ostracized kind of life. So we got it from both ends. Community, live long and prosper. No community, die young and miserable. So that's part of why I've been writing this book and promoting this, because look at also the powers that be, what they have done since the pandemic. Locked everybody down, can't have people over for dinner, you can't go outside, you can't go, participate within your community, you have to stay at home, you have to have the mask. Why do you think they're doing that? Because it's part of their general plan of exterminating the vast majority of people on this planet. They're going to exterminate us with these false medical procedures, but even their, the strategy they're using to combat the spread of the virus, even that strategy is designed to kill us because we're separated. We can't even get together with friends, nothing. No. And look in Australia, if you're walking down the street and you see your neighbor and you stop and talk to them, well, 6 cops come, knock you to the ground, pepper spray you in the face, handcuff you, throw you away, and off you go with a $25,000 fine. Why do you think they're doing that? Because this is what destroys us, and this is what I'm fighting against, Chris. This is what I've been fighting against my whole life. We have been divided against each other. I don't even know families that get along anymore. Every time I do private consultations. If you want to get prepped, you can book me for 2 hours and we'll go over all your preps and examine your situation and see what you need to do to get caught up. But I got to say, 90% of the people that I've been doing consulting for, one of the questions I always ask them is, because I'm doing what we call an inventory, a resource inventory. What resources do you have in your life? We're going to survive the most terrible economic and social collapse the world has ever seen. It's coming. And we're going to have to survive that. So what are your resources? And so I asked them, how many friends do you have? Well, they don't have friends. Well, what about your neighbors? Do you talk to them? Well, I know one guy, the rest are zombies. What about, do you have any children? Yes, we have, 3 sons. I haven't spoken to any of them in 10 years. This is common. This is common, Chris, and it breaks my heart to see that these people are living alone. They're isolated. They're worried as hell. They see what's coming, but they don't have any friends, and their own family won't talk to them. This is what, they have done to us. And so my book and my mission is to, people, let's get back together again. It's not just a matter of whether or not you will survive what's coming. It's a matter of whether or not you will live a long and healthy life too.
And now we're entering is it every 250 years, historically, cyclically,
Yes.
it's over and over and over. Here we are again. We're going into the dark ages, and you say, and I tend to agree with you, there's no reason why not. One of 2 things is about to happen. Okay, they're going to win and they're going to get their way, and we're going to end up living in a technocratic nightmare, and hopefully there will be still the metaphorical free wild folk beyond the wall, at least in most, if not all, the dystopian novels all have that tribe out there. All of them, even 1984, Brave New World had one. And of course, my favorite is Game of Thrones. I thought if I were living in that universe, I would definitely be beyond the wall. So we're entering this 250-year cycle. Historically, they're tying into what you've just said about community and groups. There's been a lot of groups that have survived and even thrived during these dark times.
Yes.
Who were they, and what was their secret?
Well, they were people that stuck together and helped each other out. That's all it was, Monasteries have traditionally been a way of surviving these collapses. You can find, ruins of monasteries throughout the world. And typically, people would flee to a monastery if they could. But monasteries had a lot of drawbacks. First of all, they weren't family oriented. It was either all male or all female in a nunnery. They survived better than the people outside the monastery walls, but they were also a bit of a target too, because for example, the Vikings, when they first started raiding England, what did they hit? They hit the monasteries, because the monasteries had all the money and all the food and all the, resources. So those monks were brutally butchered by the Vikings for about 100 years before they started moving further back inland, away from the shoreline. And we've seen that. There's examples of that throughout history, where people get away from the shoreline because there's boats going up and down, robbing and raping and murdering everybody they can get a hold of. So it did help, but the most successful groups were ones that were bonded by religion. And you need common values in order to form a community. Now, those common values can be just about anything. Well, look at the common values of our politicians, raping children and drinking their blood. That's what holds them together. It's one big happy family there at Davros and the Bilderberger and, what was that? Bohemian Grove. Wow, look at us. We all share the same bonds of murder and torture and rape. And
CFR, Trilateral Commission, World Economic Forum, on and on we go.
Yeah, bunch of murderous pedophiles, all of them. But boy, do they work together, don't they? They're a tight-knit group. They don't spill each other's secrets. They don't inform on each other. They're not arguing amongst each other. They got something in common. So a common value is very important. And the kind of communities that tended to survive were communities like the Mennonites and the Shakers and the Quakers and the Amish. Now, they all had, a kind of a Christian bond. So, okay, whatever. I'm not a Christian. I'm not any Abrahamic religion. Neither would I describe myself as a Buddhist or anything like that. I guess I'm a little bit more indigenous. I believe in some kind of great spirit, but that's about it. I certainly don't believe in, some old man up in the clouds. This is not, and I don't believe in monotheism either. I don't understand why this is such a great invention. Oh, there's only one God. When you look at the universe, it is infinitely complex with trillions of stars and galaxies, but only one guy is in charge of it all. Okay, right. But even though I'm not a Christian, I support Christians. I encourage people to be Christians because it seems to have helped a lot of people. I don't know why a lot of people, feel that they've come in contact with Jesus and Jesus is helping them in their life and their lives are getting better. So as far as I'm concerned, if it makes your life better, what do I care what you believe in? Go for it. If you're happier now than you were before, all the power to you. So I encourage people to be Christians. Yeah, if you want to be a Christian, it's because you share those values. And by sharing those values, you're able to connect with other people. And it's those kind of groups. Now, what they did was they didn't form communes. They didn't all live on the same farm. That model doesn't work. It sometimes works for, 10 years, but it always falls apart. But the ones that have survived the longest were those kind of people that shared those values, but they lived close to each other. So that's why in the blue zones, these people that lived to be 110 didn't all live on the same farm. What they did was they lived in the same town and they knew everybody in the town and everybody in the village. So if you can get your people to all buy a house in a small town somewhere, that is the most likely to survive. That's your best model.
And the hippie communes, you gave a very specific reason why certain communities also have failed. What did they do wrong? Why did they always fall apart?
Well, first of all, usually what happened with the hippie communes is you had a core group. And that's what we need. To start a community, you need a core group, 2, 3, 5 people, okay? So you guys work together and you do all the planning and all the designing, and then you rent the properties or you buy the property and you get the funding, and then you start your commune. Then what happens is the mistake the hippie communes made was that everyone's welcome, right? They were very egalitarian. Anybody could join. You didn't have to be a Christian, or you didn't have to be this. Well, a lot of people joined, and most of those people were just looking for a free ride. They couldn't hold down the job, and they had drug issues. So, well, let's go live on the commune. Our room and board is taken care of, and we don't have to do anything. So that's what happened with the communes. They got too many people in there that did not produce, that did not repay back into the community. And what happened was that the core group, and I've seen this before, and you've probably seen this too, Chris, right? So we're going to do all the work. We're going to do extra work, and then we're going to come in on the weekends, and we're going to do a little bit of extra and make sure everybody's happy, and just, put in some more money to make sure the thing keeps going and all that. Anyways, they get burned out, and they say, look, we did all this work, and we're still, we're almost bankrupt, and nobody's doing anything. Nobody's washing the dishes. I'm out of here. And then they leave. And when they leave, that leaves only the losers left in charge. And then, 1 month later, the whole thing collapses in on itself. So that was the mistake the hippies made.
Yeah, so a successful mutual aid group or community like that, they need a screening process. That's one thing that you've taught in your course, is it's very important to have a screening process. And that was, I've actually had the chance to visit the farm in Tennessee. Do you know about that one? Yeah. Well,
yeah.
A few years ago, we went up and visited there, and it took me, I still left not having a clear picture of what went wrong. I remember we asked the girl, they have a little visitor center now, and you walk around. Oh yeah. They sell books.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, people live out there, but they all have their own property, it seems. Now, from what I gather, they still pay a lot of whatever community fees together, but it looked like they all had their individual property. But it changed a lot, but I left still not clear. It still wasn't clear to me what exactly went wrong. And up until recently, when you said that nailed it. I said, that's it. They didn't have a screening process to screen out people they didn't want in their community. And that's very important for creating a mutual aid society or group.
Yeah. Listen, folks, when we create a community at this point in history, that community is a lifeboat. So you have to be careful how many people can fit in the lifeboat. And you get too many people and the whole boat sinks. So it's the same thing with communities. You have to screen out the users and the losers. You have to screen them out. And you also have to screen out the psychopaths. If you let one psychopath in your community, he or she will destroy everything. So it's very careful that you need to, screen people, make sure that they're a good fit for you. Because if not, everything you've worked for will go down the toilet. But a key point, what you were saying with the farm, is the success. I thought it was already defunct, the farm, but I guess they must have resurrected it or something like that, tried to turn it into kind of a tourist.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. They had a little visitor center, and you could buy the artifacts that the people made. That's not the right word, artifacts, but little trinkets,
Art
things
pieces,
like that.
Yeah,
all the books. It wasn't like buy a cap or a keychain kind of thing. I don't remember anything like that. But then, and they give you a map of the farm, and you could just drive yourself around. They should have just said, be respectful of people's property. But it was very interesting. We drove around it. It was nice. I mean, it was an interesting history lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is an interesting history lesson, but I think now that they've resurrected it or whatever they've done, because I believe that was started back in 1957 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, there's a few documentaries out on that one, because of all the hippie farms out there, for some reason, that one got a lot of attention in the mainstream media.
Yeah, in the early days, yeah. Anyways, but the key is everybody owns their own property. You can't all live together like David Koresh or something like that. It tends not to work. Now, with David Koresh, it worked because they were so fervent in their religious beliefs. They were almost fanatical, I guess. I don't know. How else could you stand to live with all those families?
Yeah.
But so that is the key. It's to form a community where you help each other, but you don't have to live together to do that. You can be neighbors. You can live 5 miles away, 10 miles away. I recommend that members of a community do not live more than 20 miles away from each other. And the reason I picked 20 miles is because that's how far the average fit person can walk in one day. It's a long walk. But
could I argue that you could extend that a little bit based on how far the average person could cycle in one day?
Well, absolutely. You could double that. Yeah.
The other option, I mentioned earlier, the first option, you said, okay, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to win. We're going to end up in a technocratic nightmare. And then I talked about beyond the wall and all that. And then I realized I didn't name the second option. The second option being that there's enough pushback to where, I don't know, things are not going to go the way they want it. And either way, then they will literally just turn the switch off. So either way, one of those two, but from both of those scenarios going forward, it's going to be a dark time going forward, which is why you reckon that forming a community is going to be the single best chance of surviving and thriving in what's to come.
Absolutely. This is what I worry about, because we see now there's a lot of pushback. A lot of people are waking up and becoming more aware to all the lies that we've been told for the last 150 years, 200 years. Okay, well, good. Now what's going to happen? Everybody's going to get their rifle and start shooting at the White House. What's going to happen now that everybody's awake? So what? I'm viewing this from the perspective of the elite. Okay, they're all marching in the streets. So what? They don't give a flying fluck. What's going to happen? Well, let's say, the elite is never going to say, oh my God, there's lots of people that are opposed to us. Let's resign and give back all the money we stole. It's never going to happen,
No.
Right? And especially when they've got everything they need. Trust me, they got their bug out bunkers. They got their off-grid places. So they're not in danger. Nobody's going to go after them. When I saw Luke Rudkowski confront Jacob Rothschild.
Yeah, I remember that video. Yeah.
Right? He's just walking down the street. Now, the guy behind him, I'm assuming, is security.
About how your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting the economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
but if you only got one security guy, you are not afraid, are you? You're not afraid. I wouldn't walk down Oakland by myself with one security guy. But Jacob Rothschild, he can walk down the street. So it just goes to show that they are not the least bit concerned. I mean, in a world of real men, Jacob Rothschild walking alone down the street would have resulted in at least 20 guys grabbing the nearest steak knife they could find off the table of the local restaurant and rushing him to cut his throat. That would be justice. That would be an appropriate response to that son of a bitch walking down the street, but it's not happening. So look, the elite are not worried about us. And if they feel we're getting too rowdy, they just turn off the switch. No electricity, no food, no gasoline, no food stamps. The grocery stores are closed. The trucks aren't running. Everybody's in the dark, and it's going to be wintertime, and you're going to be freezing your butt off. And now what? Now what are you going to do? Everybody's going to be in panic mode. And, there's going to be people that are going to lose it. They're losing it already. There's a lot of crazy people that have gone over the edge, just look at TikTok.
Yeah. And it's at that point that kicks in that your website, your YouTube channel, and your website at chinastrategies.com has got so much hands-on information when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of taking each topic of what you can and can't do. I loved your series on guerrilla tactics, on how urban guerrilla tactics. You've got quite a few good series out there on that. I've just recently got a ham radio, so I've been taking steps. Good. Yeah, because I haven't got my tech test yet. I'm planning to get that. That's high on my to-do list, but I went and got a radio. Anyway, not to get into the finer details, I'll save all that for the course. The move going forward, the mutual aid groups, one thing I liked that you said, you can start, it doesn't have to be that complicated. All you need is two people to come to an agreement and get going and start funneling in their money in however they agree. But just in a nutshell, what would be some of the main, summarized factors that people would want to consider when creating their own mutual aid group going forward?
Well, I was just talking about this yesterday on another interview, and that is, you see, we need to use the cover story. Now, in my Urban Guerrilla Strategies series, I talk about a cover story. A cover story is this is standard spycraft. Every spy agency in the world teaches cover story. They all know it. It's spycraft 101. And that is, you need to have a plausible story to tell the authorities if you are ever stopped and questioned, right? Because listen, at this point in history, we're all criminals anyways, right? If you were to take out the law books there that they have, that fill hundreds of shelves, thousands of books of laws, guarantee everybody listening right now is probably broken one of those laws. So we're all criminals. That's what happens when you're in a police state. So pretty much everything you do is going to be illegal. We see it now. Well, you can't meet with friends and you can't talk about the virus and you can't post this on YouTube, and then they'll deplatform you and they'll take down your YouTube account and your PayPal account, and they'll even go after your bank account.
Yeah, so it's coming to that.
Yeah. No, it's already come to that to a lot of people. Like Red Ice Radio, they took their bank accounts down, Yeah, and a few of the other truth tellers. I mean, they went after their bank accounts. Bank of America sent them a notice. By the way, we can no longer do business with you. And they said, "Well, are you going to give me back my $3,000?" And Bank of America said, "No."
I will argue that the minute this whole shebang, this debacle started, they should have pulled their money out of Bank of America right then and there. If you didn't know by then, do not do business with the devil. And if you do, you would better know the game that you're playing. Yeah. That's what I tell my kids. My kids want to order something from Amazon or something like that. I said, okay, but you need to know the game you're playing. You need to if you're going to engage in all of that, you've got to know who you're dealing with. The cover story's fantastic. And this might be getting a bit off topic.
That was the one with the smuggling, right?
Yeah. But my favorite one was your uncle, the Gimp. I mean, do you want to you want to throw that story out there real quick?
Okay, sure. Well, listen, urban guerrilla tactics. What I try to do with this series, I try and base it on real life stories. So this is stuff that actually happened to me and worked for me. With the cover story, I was smuggling gold and contraband goods between Taipei and Seoul, Korea. And I got approached by the customs agent and said, "Wow, you got all this stuff." But I had a cover story, so I fed him a line of bullshit that was so sweet. He thought I was a hero at the end of it, And the story with my uncle, and this is going back to World War II. My uncle was a young boy, and my grandfather worked for the agricultural department of the government, and he knew all the local farmers. And this is a lesson for everybody as well. Get to know your local producers, right? And so when the war hit and everybody was starving in Europe, I mean, everybody was starving, the Germans, the Dutch, the French, because food production was down. I mean, half the country was bombed out. The farmers told my grandfather, "If you need anything, you come to us." So what would happen is once every couple of weeks, one of my uncles would make the trip on foot, 20, 30 miles, walk out into the countryside to one of the farmers, and the farmer would give him, a sack of potatoes and some carrots, and some cabbage and some eggs and maybe a chicken. And they would bring it back. And that's what kept my family fed during the war. Now, one time when my uncle was coming back, it was after curfew because, now we got curfews. Well, at least Australia does. Soon curfews will be coming to us too, okay? And then when you come home after curfew, there will be a police roadblock there. And in this case, back in World War II, there was a German roadblock. Now, the Germans, if they found young men, they would apprehend them and send them to work in the factories in Germany, because this is towards the end of the war. Most of Germany's fighting age men were dead by this time. This is when they were putting, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids in the field, and they still needed people to work in the munitions factories. So what they would do is if they found you walking down the street after curfew, you got to give them an excuse. During the daytime, they wouldn't do it. But if you were out after curfew, they would pick you up and ship you to a factory in Germany, and your family wouldn't know what the hell happened to you. So he's coming back. He's got all these groceries from the farmer, and he sees a German checkpoint on the road, which, folks, you will all soon experience, okay? You're going to be experiencing these checkpoints on your way to the grocery store. Let's see your COVID passport before you can go any further, all right? Anyways, so what he did was he used a strategy, which in my book, The 36 Strategies, is called the strategy of playing the fool. And so what he did was he let snot drip down his nose, and he started drooling, so he's got snot and drool all over his face, and he kind of affected kind of a limp, like a gimpy limp. And so he, went up to the Nazi checkpoint. Yeah, you're out after curfew. Huh? Oh, huh? And so anyways, the German soldiers thought, he's too retarded to kidnap and sent to work in a factory. He's nothing but trouble. He doesn't know where he's at. So they said, okay, go through, go. And so we got through the checkpoint. Now, listen, I have used this strategy myself, pretending to be retarded, pretending to be old and senile to get out of tickets and fines and things like I do that myself, okay? One of the good things about growing old is that you can pretend to be senile and people will believe you. So this is part of, listen, we got to survive in this situation. And part of surviving is to be cunning and ruthless. And that's what my series on
And being adaptable as well. I can give my own example. When I was in college, my truck was broken down. I can't remember what I was driving actually, and I wanted to go to the bar. So I took my grandfather's old farm truck, an old Silverado pickup truck, to the bar. And I'm loaded, I'm steaming, I'm leaving the bar, and the old sheriff pulls me over, and he goes, son, you've been drinking. I can smell it on your breath. And that's where I played the redneck country boy. I was like, yes, sir, I have, but I live right on up here, and he's like, all right, 2 blocks from here, you promise you'll go straight home? I say, yes, sir. And boom. So yeah, it is an excellent strategy to use. One more on that fantastic series you've got is Who's Joe Country Club and Who's Joe Homeless?
Oh, that's me.
So disguise.
Yeah. Listen, people judge. You are judged by your appearance, basically. People make a snap decision. It's, we've heard about this before, first impressions. Yeah, well, first impressions. So I have 2 outfits that I call costumes or disguises. It depends on where I'm going. Now, my first costume is Joe Homeless. That's my favorite costume, to be honest with you, because I do a lot of bicycling. And I like to explore the city by bicycle. It's the best way to explore a city. If you drive, you go by too fast. You don't see what's all the little details of the community, of the city, of the streets. And if you walk, it's too monotonous and too slow. So bicycling, perfect. And I have bicycled through, like Compton, Oakland, but typically when I bicycle, I wear my Joe Homeless outfit, which is just, my oldest pair of jeans, my most torn up jacket, and, usually a black knit skull cap, that kind of thing. Well, I look homeless, right? But when you're homeless, people leave you alone. Nobody's trying to mug me, right? That's why I can bicycle down Compton. Right. That's why I can bicycle through Oakland. That's why I can get through Detroit. That's why I can get through Chicago, because I look like a homeless person. Nobody wants to mug me. And to be honest with you, homeless people are a lot more cordial and giving than most other people. So that's one costume I wear. The other costume is my double-breasted brass button country blazer, right? So I look like I just stepped out from the yacht club.
Joe Country Club.
Joe Country Club. I just came from the yacht club. And when I put on this outfit, and I use this outfit when I'm like going to the bank, if you have to go to the bank to get a loan or something like that, or refinancing something, or when you're going to a hotel. So I put on my Joe Country Club outfit, and oh, what a world of difference. People are kissing your butt up and down. They're so polite and so nice to you. It's just a facade. I'm not Joe Country Club, but I got the nice suit. I keep 2 suits in the closets, right? I almost never wear them. They're all in plastic and all that. But if I had to do something, yeah, I'm going to put on the goddamn suit, because it's night and day the way they treat you. Now, what I said in one of the videos is that I can go into a hotel dressed as Joe Country Club, and I could go outside, change into Joe Homeless outfit, walk back into the same hotel, and they won't recognize me. They won't.
How do you teach instinct? I mean, you said it best. The best way you can't really teach instinct, but telling these stories and giving people insight into real life situations is how you do it. My own example of a disguise was when I lived in Madrid. I was in my 20s, Madrid, Spain. It was the late 90s, and I always wore dark. I tried to fit in. I tried not to stand out as a foreigner, or certainly not as a tourist. And I would walk all around that city, the darkest corners of that city, either taking shortcuts or just curious. And there was one time where, the young Moroccan guys surrounded me, and they're like, hey, I can't remember. As soon as I spoke in Spanish, they knew I was a foreigner. I couldn't hide that. And they're like, hey, man. And they were like, and then someone pointed out they were getting and then one guy said, God, look at his shoes. Cause I was wearing them. I was basically homeless uniform. I was not dressed up. I did not look like I had money, and my shoes were so worn out, and I almost laughed. They said, God, look at his shoes. And then they just left me alone. That was it. They were gone. So it does work for sure. Yeah. But yeah, teaching instinct is telling real life stories. And I think that was very insightful of that.
How do you teach instinct? I don't know, Chris. I've been working on this for a while, trying to figure out how to teach it. Me personally, I'm lucky. I have great instincts. I really do. I've always had a very good instinct. And I've been trying to, because instinct is something that happens very quickly, right? It's not something you have time to plan out during the situation that you're in. Instinct comes into play when you are threatened or in danger, and you need to act quickly in order to avoid being attacked or being arrested or being fined, whatever it is. You need to act really quickly. So there's no, we're going to stop you on the street tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Plan a good plan of action on what you're going to, no, you don't have time for it. It's the same thing that I learned in martial arts. It's combat. You cannot plan combat. You are in it and you have to react instinctively. You cannot plan, well, if he punches me this way, I will block this, and then I will grab his hand and I will put him into a wrist lock. And like we seen that movie Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. If he does this, I will do that. No, that never happens. You cannot do that. I mean, I thought it was funny in the movie. I was cute. I liked it. But that is not reality at all. Reality is you must react instinctively. Now, here's my theory on it. And again, I'm not sure. I'm coming up with I'm working. When I say I'm working, I've been planning this in my brain. I sit out at night and I go through all the scripts, right? But I haven't written anything, but I'm writing it in my head. I'm coming up with a script on instinct and authenticity, because, everybody's always talking, oh, you have to be authentic and all that. But you know what? The two are really two sides of the same coin. And here's the key. And here's what I think it is when you practice martial arts, and again, you got to do it a long time and be pretty intense about it. But when you practice martial arts, what you do is you stop the internal dialogue. Do you know what I mean about the internal dialogue?
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. So this is something I think everybody has. It's this a voice in your head that says, I am Chris. Nam, 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 and it just goes on, a yippity yap. It's got an opinion about everything. And, and I am Chris. But you know what? It's not Chris. It's not Stefan. So when I act out of instinct, it's like, it's not me. And this is a concept spoken of in Zen Buddhism, and especially in martial arts. It's called Mushin in Japanese, or Wuxing in Chinese. And what it means is no mind. Now, there's people don't understand this. It's very difficult to, kind of describe what no mind is. It sounds very exotic, but no mind means that your intellectual center is not in charge of this. I'll give you the example of what I'm writing about. I'll run it by you. There was a German fellow that went to Japan to study archery, Kyoto, and Eugene Herrigel was his name. And he wrote a book about it called Zen and the Art of Archery. And he described an incident where he went to the shooting range, and it was late at night, it was dark, and his master was there. And his master said, well, okay, watch this. He pulls out the arrow and he pulls it down. And Eugene Herrigel said it was the target was so far away, it wasn't even visible in the dark because they're late at night. Pulls it out, lets the arrow go, bullseye. I mean, amazing, right? And this is an example of his martial prowess, but also an example of his Zen maturity, his mastery of Zen. And when Eugene Herrigel said, oh my God, how did you do that? His master, the teacher, said, I did not do it. All right. Okay. So now you were talking instinct. Instinct is not the voice in our head that we think is I. Gurdjieff talks about that. It's all these false I's. And these false I's are not your authentic self. Your authentic self is the totality of your being. It's your emotions, it's your heart, it's your passion, it's your body, and how in touch you are with your body. If you're not in touch with your body, forget about instinct. You don't have any. You have to be in touch with your body. It's also one reason why you stay healthy. I haven't been to a doctor in 45 years. Never. I haven't been sick. I know if I'm something wrong with me because I could sense it. And I'm not a health food nut or anything like that, but I don't worry about it. And I can, I know. So what is it then? Well, it's shutting off that infernal dialogue, this false I, which lives up in our head. It's probably a function of the speech center of our brain. This is what I think it is. It's like there's a radio that's constantly playing, oh, my opinion on this, oh, my memory of that, oh, what I said about, yippity yap. But that's not who you really are. And this thing tends to dominate people. And so when people say they're being inauthentic, Well, it's because they're letting this automatic voice machine babble on. It goes through the files of your memory and it comments on everything. Blah, 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 blah. All the great religions or the esoteric religion traditions all teach how to silence the internal dialogue. And Gurdjieff talks about it. The Zen masters talk about it. The Taoists talk about it. What do you think the saying is? There's the famous Taoist saying that says, if it can be spoken of, it is not the Tao. In other words, if this thing is going, I'm the Taoist and I go with the flow and I believe in Buddha, that's not the Tao. It's just that stupid little voice in your head. And that's what, when you practice enough martial arts, you suppress that. You can't be yippity yapping your head while you're going through your Tai Chi movements, because your focus now is on the body and how do you feel, your balance, the relationship of your muscles to your bones and your posture and the sense of gravity, and then the wind in your hair, because I always do it outside. I can't train indoors. I like to be outside under the leaves. And now you're in touch with your authentic self. And that's where instinct comes into play. Instinct is not something you can think up in your head. So long as you're, sucked up in your own mind, you won't have any instinct. You won't have any creativity either, because creativity comes from the heart and your being. So you won't be a good musician, you won't be a good artist, you won't be a good anything if all you do is sit and listen to the voice in your head. And so that's what I think. That's my theory on it, Chris. I don't know.
I've always told people, and I've always claimed to have a good instinct, because over the years, especially living abroad, as an icebreaker, you go to a party in Madrid, and so an icebreaker is, so they robbed you yet? And I'm one of the few people that I know that never got robbed in Madrid. Came close a few times, but there was that voice or that instinct, not that voice actually, saying, don't go down that alley. Those guys are standing there. And there's, when I worked in tourism as well, this was very important. Reading people, having an instinct with people. A quick example is we had two group leaders in this massive group. They were from Vancouver Island, this group. And my coworker, she and I were working together, and she had a lot more experience than me. And these two group leaders, and right from the beginning, I said, that guy is going to be trouble. I don't think you have to worry about that guy. And she'd been doing this a long time, and she said, what? And towards the end of the tour, I was right. Now, how did I know that? Just, instinct. But I don't know. I reckon it's just you gain it with experience, I suppose. That would be it. Just the more experience, the more you get out there without fear and get your hands dirty, the more you gain a survival instinct or instinct alone. Yeah, I always worried that I had too much inner voice, and I might be right.
Well, we all do. We all do, Chris. It's endemic among humanity, and it's the cause of most of our problems. All the division between politics and left and right and up and down and black and white and all that. That's all these little voices chattering, and the people that run this world know that. That's why they control the narrative. All those voices you have in your head, like I said, with people, everybody's got an opinion. Oh my God, they got an opinion, and they want you to hear it, and they want you to agree with it and all that. I said, the thing is, they don't really have an opinion. It was never theirs. It was programmed into them, programmed by their college, by their school, by their public school, by their preacher, by their parents, by media. They never came up with this opinion. Now they have it though, and boy, they're going to get really offended if you don't value their opinion. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. Your opinion means nothing to no one, to nowhere in the vast scheme of the universe. Shut the F up about your goddamn opinion. Nobody cares, but people are ready to inflict violence on you if you don't agree with their opinion. One main overlying theme that we discuss and talk about all the time in the autonomy community is just that, looking for the contradictions to get to the truth, to basically eliminate the noise and focus on the signal. And it's not easy, but it's perfectly possible with a bit of
training, a bit of recognition. Okay, I'm experiencing scarcity mentality or learned helplessness.
Yes.
If the more you're aware of it, and you can put it into words, then you can control it better. But yes, getting rid of the sifting through the noise and getting to the signal is something that nobody is even aware that that's what they need to do to get to the bottom of things. And there's a lot of confusion out there. But to help eliminate the confusion out there, we've got people like you and your book and your course that's when is the release date? I believe is it next week? Today is September 26th. Now, I might try to time this where I release this on the day it's released. But when's it going to be out, the course?
I'm not sure, but yes, next week sometime.
Yeah. Very good. I don't know. I might get this out beforehand. I'll see. I'll kind of play with it. But yeah, your course, The Complete Guide to Forming Communities, and your book. You want to kind of give the nutshell of what they'll get out of it and why it's so important.
Which book?
Both of them. How the course ties into The Complete Guide to Forming Communities.
Yeah. So the book is my attempt to make it easy for the world. Like it's, because I know that forming communities is very tricky and very complicated. I mean, it sounds easy. Oh, well, we'll just get together and work together. Oh, sounds good. I'm in. But it's not that easy. There's a lot of factors that you got to take into consideration. Number one, screening people out. Number two, clearly defining for everybody's understanding what is expected of you. Chris, are you going to do the dishes every Tuesday?
If that's my role, okay. As long as that's what's agreed to beforehand. Absolutely.
Exactly. So long as it's agreed to, but if it's not agreed to, and then suddenly nobody's talking to you, and then you're going, well, you were supposed to do the dishes. Well, I didn't know about that. Well, that's your problem. Now we're not talking to you because all of this bickering and we have to, anticipate it and nip it in the bud before it happens. And that's what this book tries to do. You'd have to write a charter. You have to write a mission statement. You have to think about, while the civilization is still functioning, some sort of legal structure that you can operate under, because if not, then you're going to have a whole lot of problems. You need a charter, you need a bylaws. How are we going to, what happens if Chris can't pay this month his $20? Well, do we kick him out and everything that he's paid for the last 2 years goes into the kitty and Chris can hit the road and with nothing? How do we resolve these problems? Well, in the bylaws, I would say we pay for Chris for 3 months, and then we review the situation again. And if it seems that Chris is under undue hardship, we pay his fees again for another 3 months. This way we, how are we going to deal with this? You can't just sort of say, well, you made a mistake and you're out on your ass and we don't want to talk to you and we ostracize you. And we have to work together. Everybody has good times and bad times.
And so I will argue, just someone listening might be intimidated by hearing that. They might be thinking, how could I ever write a bylaw? I don't even know what a bylaw is. But that's the beauty of the work you've done, is you practically do all of that for people, at least give them a starting point and then to work with.
Yeah, I'm going to see, that's why, and it's taken me so long because it's a lot of work. I'm up to 400 pages now and I'm still working at it. But what I do is I provide you all the bylaws. You pick and choose which ones you like. I like this bylaw. We'll include that in our charter. I don't like this bylaw. We'll delete it from our charter. Cut and paste, put it into your own document. There you go. However you want to do it. But I'm giving you all the tools. I'm giving you the charter, how to write a charter. You still have to do a little bit of writing on your own. You still have to come up with a name and you have to have an address, and you need to have somebody that's a president and a treasurer and a secretary. Typically you need 3 people if you want to go nonprofit charitable organization. You need 3 people. If not, then 1 or 2 people can do it, but you have to designate that in advance. So I'm giving you all the tools, how to do it, how to set up meetings, how to write the rules, how to write the charter, how to register it with the government for, tax exempt status, 501(c), whatever. And then how to run the organization, and then other things too, like, bring in mythology and ritual. What kind of a ritual? Well, we know the evil people have their favorite rituals there at Bohemian Grove, where they sacrifice little children to their god Baal. But we have other kinds of rituals that, I've tried to incorporate in my communities, which is barbecue night. Every, last Friday of our last Saturday of every month, come over to my place. I make the barbecue and I make my specialty Papa Stefano's pasta supremo, which is my personal recipe. One mouthful of my pasta salad is like 3,000 calories. I got everything. It's great,
It sounds good. I don't know. I could see a marketing idea right there. Papa Stefano's, but that's another business.
That's another business. But the thing is, and then, music night or story night. We all come together. Everybody has to tell a story. Right. And then on Halloween, everybody has to tell a scary story, or we have music night that, every 3 months we get together, everybody brings their instruments, their guitars, their violins, their cellos, whatever. And we just jam, we build a big bonfire and we play music and people can dance. These are the rituals we need to create because those kind of rituals will bond people together. So we can't just say, oh, we're a community and we'll just email each other. No, you got to come together. You got to share food. You got to share drama and happiness. And drama, and by drama, I mean like something like music night or story night or something like that, because this is a drama. Ritual is a theater production, is what it really is. And by people participating in theater, it elevates them. It's sort of mind expanding in a sense. And that is, it does elevate you. It changes your consciousness, your level of consciousness by participating in a community activity that has theatrical elements. Why do you think all these churches have all these, the communion and all these rituals like marriage ceremony and all that? Marriage is just a big ceremony. It's a big ritual. Why would everybody have to come together and share food and then they have all the, you got to dance with the bride's wife or mother-in-law, and then there's the ring, and then there's the garter, and then there's throwing the bouquet. That's a ritual, folks. But it works because it unifies people and brings them together. Now, personally, I've always hated weddings, but otherwise, they're kind of fun.
It's a big party.
It's a big party, right? So everybody gets together, they have a few drinks and tell stories, and they laugh at the groom when he tells a bad joke and all that kind of stuff. It's a ritual, but it does serve to form bonds between the community. So this is some of the things you need to think about before you start a community, because if you don't have that, there's nothing to hold people together. If you don't have the last Saturday of the month barbecue where everybody comes together, I'd have it at my place, and we would do the barbecue, and I'd have a fire pit. We'd all sit around the fire pit and joke and laugh and tell stories and have good food. That's a ritual, but that creates bonds with people, and that's what we need when we start these communities.
That's an excellent point, and it makes me reflect on my own group out in East Texas that, it's too random and sporadic. I'm feeling motivated because we used to meet every Friday back in the day, long before all of this mess started. We were originally a homeschooling group, and now we're kind of develop, into something more. So, and we have kind of lost our way as far as a ritual, a routine. We don't have a regular thing, even though we do meet up quite frequently. I'm the oddball out because I'm an hour away and they're all kind of clustered together. But these are excellent points. And the three main types of mutual aid groups that you cover, not-for-profit, for-profit, and unincorporated. And then you break it down into all the different types that you could go. Like I just mentioned, a homeschooling group. That's just one of many, many different types that you go through in your course and go into the real nitty-gritty details of it.
Yeah. No, I'm all in favor of homeschooling because I think public education is a crime against humanity. Certainly
Absolutely.
Against poor children. Look what they're teaching them now there with their classes on fisting and oral sex for fourth graders, right?
Again, it goes to my same comment with Bank of America. When all this started in February of 2019, if you didn't pull your kids out of school right then and there, it's going to be harder for you. That's all I got to say on that. People still got their kids in public school. There is no excuse.
I know. I agree.
There, I can hear all the excuses. Oh, I don't have time, my job, and this and
Yes,
that.
yes.
There's
yes.
nothing more important than your kids.
And that's what this community addresses too. I don't have time. Well, you don't need to have time. You form a co-op, a community homeschooling co-op, and now you've got 5 families, and you share the time between the 5 families. You share the cost of the space and the cost of the materials, the books and the pencils and the paper and all that kind of stuff. You share that, and now you don't have to stay home all day. Every day to homeschool your kids. You can say devote one afternoon a week to looking after everybody's kids, and every other parent does the same thing. And now you've got a full-time school. So again, community is the solution to that problem.
So all of the details of how to do this for people who want to move forward, who want to get started but are intimidated by it, your course will be out very soon. Your book will be out very soon. I always link everything in the show notes for my interviews. I will make it as easy as possible for someone listening to just go straight to it and get that started. And also, of course, they could start right away without messing with any of that by going to your YouTube channel, which is excellent. All of your guerrilla urban tactics videos they're supplemental as part of the course, but they're straight from your YouTube channel. So I recommend anyone going to your channel. I'm surprised your channel hasn't been axed yet. That's good. That means, I'd like to argue. I don't know.
I'll tell you why, Chris, because I'm very careful. From the very beginning of the internet, when I first signed on, I think I used AOL or something at that time, way back with dial-up, back in 1996 or something like that. I knew that they would watch everything you did and track it. I knew that. So I never used an alias. I never used an avatar. I've always been S Verstappen at yahoo.com since the very beginning. That's my name. That's who I am. I'm not trying to hide anything. But what I do know is that algorithms don't understand humor. They don't understand analogy. They don't understand metaphor. So what I've tried to do to get from being banned is, I tell a lot of truth. You get it, Chris, because you understand metaphor and humor and analogy. That's why you say some of the videos made you laugh. It's rare for people to laugh at my video. You have to have a really keen sense of humor to pick up on my, I'm as dry as toast, like a dry martini. But the algorithms don't get it. And so I can speak the truth, but I speak it in metaphor. But this is, of course, what the court joker has done for thousands of years, right? He's telling
that's an excellent point. That's true.
He's telling the truth. He's speaking truth to power. He's speaking truth about the king, but because he frames it as a limerick or a joke or a metaphor, the king is not offended and won't have his head cut off, right? So he can get away with it. So same thing. Again, this goes back to being cunning and ruthless. We got to know our enemy and know how to get past them. So I'm quite proud that not one strike on my channel, not one video deleted. I've been demonetized on a couple of videos, well, anyways, I tried my best.
Do you have a backup? I mean, are you on Odyssey or any of the other platforms?
I'm on BitChute.
Gotcha. Good.
Yeah,
good.
That's about it. Yeah.
Because I know the Matt Raymer and that crew at Content Safe. That's what they do. They take content creators who are getting axed, and they're helping them out. They're putting them on IPFS, which is permanent interplanetary file sharing system. There's about 3 decent alternatives to YouTube out there right now, 3 or 4, and the independent media are all kind of there's not much truth left on YouTube anymore, but we use it. We'll use it to our advantage. The way we use, like I said, the devil you're dancing with. Stefan, this conversation's been it's not as dark as I thought it would be. It's been nice because the reality is, we're going into dark times, but the sooner people come to accept that, the better, because it's, once you accept it and you start taking steps going forward. It's not that bad. In fact, it's borderline exciting, knowing that at least you're aware of the problem, because there's so many people that don't even know there is a problem still right now. There's so many people that still think all this is going to go away once everyone gets the vaccine, and it's unbelievable. But I do want to keep that optimism up. We probably should get wrapping up here. I want to end on a optimistic note. So for those who are about to survive this upcoming dark age that we're coming into, what are they going to do?
Well, you need to work together. Again, mutual support. But according to the theory of historical cycles, which we discussed earlier, you said 250 years. Yeah, that's about the average. A society manages to survive and then it collapses. And that's according to the theory of historical cycles. So we are in the end stage where we are approaching what is known as the age of chaos. Now, this could be 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years. It could be 1,000 years. Let's hope it's not. But all things pass. Everything comes and goes. Nothing remains. And so when the age of chaos is finished, once we go through this dark period, the next age is known as the age of warriors. And it has traditionally been throughout history the best time to be alive was it during the age of warriors. Women had the most equality. People trusted each other because, well, all the scumbags were killed off during the chaos, right? So the people that survived were strong, honest, tough men and women, and they rebuild civilization. So, I keep telling people, just the key now is just to survive for the next few years, okay? Work together, help each other, make sure you survive, and not just survive. I tell people how to survive and be comfortable. My advice on food storage is, have some pudding, have some treats once in a while. Stockpile some chocolates for the kids. They're going to be miserable when they're going to be locked up in their house and everybody's going to be, worried and scared. So give the kids, a chocolate bar once a week. And then for the adults, I recommend stockpiling some vodka. At the end of a long day of surviving the apocalypse, when you get back home to your cave and you're sitting around the fire, a shot of whiskey would really go good. Trust me, helps calm the nerves. I mean, I know it's a crutch and all that. We're supposed to be better than that, but trust me, I've been through these situations, and even people that are teetotalers, at the end of the day, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll have a shot. Yeah, pour me one too. Nothing wrong with that. Because we're going through stressful times. People are going to be dying and struggling, and so what I recommend is survive with a little bit of comfort. Treat yourself too, even during the apocalypse. Let's have a chocolate bar. Let's have a hot chocolate with marshmallows, whatever. Something that makes the kids feel good, makes the adults feel good. We're going to get through this, but once it's over, now is the time to rebuild. Now is the time for good people that have already formed a community. That community now becomes the seed for a new society.
That was the beauty of all the mutual aid societies that you described. They all will have the flexibility to change the type of society or the type of group that they are into, at the end of the day, if they have to keep evolving into what you would call a survival community, and I like how like a homeschooling group could easily evolve into a survival group.
Yes.
And you go through all the different types, mainly search and rescue, things like that. Art groups, the artists have fared very well.
Yeah.
Well, Stefan, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Don't forget to get my survival library. That's my product it's on my website, chinastrategies.com. Over 300 books that I've compiled over the last 20 years. Some of these they're all PDF books, so you just download them, you store them on a flash drive, you keep them handy, because it will teach you how to survive anything and how to rebuild civilization from scratch if you had to. How to, it's got everything in it. Farming, medicine, health, urban guerrilla strategies, improvised weapons, communications, how to build improvised hydroelectric power generators. You got a little running stream on your property, no problem. You've got electricity for the next 20 years. So things like that. And then also, but again, like I said, once this is over, we're going to need to rebuild. And this will have the information that will allow you to rebuild. So get my survival library. That's my big plug there, Chris. But it's worth every penny, and you'll be happy that you got it, because ultimately I'm trying to teach how to work with instinct and how to be ruthless and cunning. But ultimately, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge that you have on a wide variety of survival skills and strategies and the mechanics of it, the more knowledge you have, the better chances you have of surviving. And so that's my final plug for the day, Chris.
Stefan, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Chris. Anytime. You take care, and you have a good weekend.
Walking down the street, the children play. For them, it's just another day. The future's reflected in their parents' faces, who chose to stay on in this place where they were born, went to school, got married, and kids, like their grandparents before them did. Got to escape, before it's too late. Although today I could say that I really will miss the when Santa. But yeah, I was right. Knew what it was like when Santa.
You've been listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan. Go to the subscribe page and sign up to get notifications of the latest posts. And check out the support page to help keep it going.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Jesus Christ. I've got a friend in Jesus Christ, and Krishna and Buddha and my bartender.
Autonomy is not just like how to work from home or how to earn money online. That's a causality, but it's really about how to observe your reality to find the right problems that need to be solved, how to have a method to be able to solve those problems, how to have the team and collaboration you need to be able to solve those problems. Success can bring a change that is unforeseen, and it depends on how you choose to think about that. So here comes freedom of choice. We have a choice on how we react to the thoughts we have, or if we thoughtfully respond. Or in between stimulus and reaction, there can be a space, but there doesn't have to be. The people who are under control get stimulus and they react. That's the automaton. The autonomous person receives stimulus and says, hey, before I react, let me ask a few questions. Let me look around with my 5 senses. Let me gather some data. But the difference is freedom or slavery.